Outer Orange.
If you've clicked on this video, you're probably here for some Kairi Ghost deck, Lyrical Monasterio deck profile. So let's go on and get into the awesomeness of this deck. Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Have you ever tried a Kairi trial deck? Well, now you can expand on your trial Kairi deck by using the Lyrical Monasterio set 1 cards to make your deck even better with a little splashes of some other things. Today we're going to be going over the deck profile, and if you want to see more videos like this, I'll also be doing a separate video of the combo versions of this deck. So please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button to see that type of content, to see what you can possibly do with your Lyrical Monasterio decks. But now in the meantime, let's go ahead and do the Lyrical Monasterio Kairi Ghost deck profile. So let's go ahead and do that. Switch on over. So here's the ride line, but before the ride line, as per usual, we have to talk about our deck box, which is right here. I'm using the Ballista gem deck box to be kind of funny because this is kind of like a Ballista deck, but not really. And then for the sleeves, I'm using reindeer sleeves. That is from Fishing Road. I've recently picked these up from 50 cards, so I use them for this deck. I really can tell you why. And then for ride deck sleeves, I actually use Aqua. I think Aqua from G is adorable, so I thought I'd throw her in here. One of the few humans in G, so in terms of mermaids, so it's just really cool to see. So let's go ahead and get into the actual profile. All right, so I have the ride line here. I'm going to start from 0, 1, 2, 3, kind of flip as we go. So here we have the 0. This is just a generic Overdrive starter. You just ride her. This is Mion. This is the LSP version. And then after that, we go into the grade 1, which is Ballista. This is proof of the hard work of Ballista. This, you're probably wondering, well, why in the world are you running a card that's not even part of Kairi? We're not part of the trial deck. This card lets you search for something called Ruby. And what the Ruby does is the Ruby lets you counterblast, and then with the counterblast you can draw 2 cards and then discard 1 card, and this will get you faster to your Kairi Persona ride, which we'll talk about here in a sec, as Kairi is very reliant on Persona ride, so you want to see it as soon as possible. But this is a ride upon skill, so we need this grade 2 right here to kind of start this off. When you ride on top of her, she lets you search for the gem, and now her skill says if you were to use a gem, you actually draw an extra card. So this lets you dig even deeper. You pretty much draw 3 cards on your grade 2 turn and discard 1 for the cost of putting something into soul and putting a card from hand to soul. It is a little bit of a requirement, but like I said, you're mainly just here to dig through your deck as quickly as possible. This lets us get to our Kairi as quickly as possible. Then let's talk about our grade 3, which is Kairi herself. This is the LSP version. Looks something like this. This is a very, very fun card. This is very Bermuda, so if you're really into Bermuda Triangle, like all the original stuff, you're going to love this type of style, as it's very reliant on bouncing and all that stuff. If you played Bermuda in the past, you're probably gonna like the style. She says when she attacks, you can Soul Blast, return 2 rear guards to your hand. It could be any 2, and then on top of that, her other skill says if you were to Persona ride, you can then at the end of battle call 2 more rear guards to different columns. So something like this. It's a little strange, but pretty much you can call 2 like this, 2 like this, or 2 like this, or you can do something like this if it's behind Vanguard. You just can't do something like this. It can't be on the safe side, meaning if you're going to bounce like this, you can't call like this. It has to be 2 separate ones. We'll kind of get into how to go around this, because this is kind of what makes her a little bit balanced, but we'll go around how to kind of manipulate that type of ability of column calling, and how you can also go into, like, you know, different maneuvers. But that's pretty much our ride line. We're going to put our ride line, well, keep it in the center because we're probably going to be referring to it. So let's go ahead and talk about the grade 3s here. This is where all the interesting stuff starts coming in, but first we'll start off with Persona ride. You obviously need a Persona, so here is the Kairi Persona. This is just 3 copies of her. You know, you just kind of need her. She is literally part of your engine, so you desperately need her in this deck. You can't run less unless you have a really good way to search it. But there is a card for it, not in this deck, but in general, it's just not very great. But you want to run 3 of her. You want to run 4 of the Ghost Ingrid. This is from Felty Rosa. So this card's skill, there she is. Her skill says if she's placed from anywhere that isn't from hand, she actually countercharges. So if you have any way to look at top card and call her, you actually get to countercharge. But her other skill says when she attacks, she gets 5k. And at the end of battle, you put her to the bottom of your deck, and that's pretty much it. She gets rid of herself from the circle. You put it to the bottom, and it's pretty much mandatory. This is in SP form, but pretty sure on the actual card says you have to do this. So you don't have a choice. When you attack, you get the 5k. You have to do this. Now, why do we run this card? Run this card for 2 reasons. One, she is an 18k beat stick, just really good stuff. You love seeing 18k attackers. It forces your opponent to have to guard in 10k intervals, and if they don't have 10k intervals, they have to guard with a trigger, which sucks for a lot of people, as most people will have trouble guarding this. So, but the other thing is that she gets rid of herself on the board. A lot of the cards that we'll be seeing here require you to have an open rearguard circle. I want to stay open rearguard circle. Like, it's very important that you realize that, because that's kind of where the balance of this deck kind of comes in. It has to be open rearguard circle. So this card, since she gets rid of herself, you'll have an open rearguard circle to call to again, and that's where the beginning of the Ghost engine kind of starts. Next, we also have Annalise. So we have 3 copies of her. Some people got this back to 2. I personally love seeing open rearguard circle type of units, so I think this card is really nice. She also gives 5k to stuff. She kind of plays similar to this card, but just a little bit different. Her skill says at the end of the battle that she attacked, if she were boosted, you can put her into soul, choose one of your rear guards, and it gets 5k. So this is very nice, as you can make other columns really strong. And on top of that, she also board wipes herself, enabling you to be able to call stuff over where she was originally. She also gives 5k to stuff, and there'll be something important that she gives 5k to specifically that will really kind of help with the numbers. So this is Aerith right here. Her skill is very fun. This is a Kairi specific type of skill, but it pretty much says if your Vanguard is Kairi, when she attacks while boosted, you can counterblast and call a card from your hand. So normally what you want to do is you want to have her on one side, you want to have an open rearguard circle, because she does state you have to beat to an open rearguard circle. And you can pretty much call this or this, whatever you want. Normally what you want to do is you want to attack on one side like this, you'll attack, and then then it'll go away, right? It'll go into soul, and then you use her skill to then call another one if you have one in your hand, and thus making you a multi-attacking deck, right? So that's one thing you can do with her. It is a counterblast. She does require to be boosted, but there are, like I said, there are ways to kind of get around the boost stuff. But this is a really good card to kind of extend your combos, extend your attacks, extend pretty much anything. And like I said, your Vanguard has to be Kairi, so she's only played in Kairi, and honestly, I think this card's pretty good. It can minus you, so you have to be kind of careful what you're doing, as you're literally calling a card from hand, so it might deplete your hand a little bit fast, so just be careful when you go into this, but overall it's good. Next, I run 2 floor onto the rearguard circle from hand. You can reveal the top card if it's not a grade 2, or if it's a unit, right? Or if it's a unit card that is not a grade 2, you may call it to the board, and again, it has to be an open rearguard circle. If not, you put the reveal card to the bottom of the deck. So this is another pretty much attack extender type of thing, because you can place her somewhere and then use her skill to call something else somewhere else. There's also a really good rush turn type of thing. You can rush with her grade 2 turn. If you get like crits, triggers and stuff like that, you can still put those on the board, and you can also, bounce it back with Kairi or do whatever you want to do to kind of enable that. So she's pretty cool. Reason I run her is just because I just think she's cool. Like, I think she's just a good way to just extend stuff if you need it to be extended. She can also work really well with this card. This is Eleanor. Now, Eleanor's skill says when she attacks you, Soul Blast 2, put her to the top of your deck. In some situations, you don't want her on top, so when you multi-attack, you can put her to the top of your deck, then call Floor. Floor will look at the card, which will be Eleanor, and then Eleanor will go to the bottom, making your drive check go back to normal. In some cases, you don't want your normal unit at top. This isn't a Felty Rosa deck, but this card is just such a beast stick they kind of need it. And that's pretty much what Eleanor does. Eleanor says when she attacks, you Soul Blast 2, she gets 15k, and she then goes on top. She is a clearer, a rearguard clearer, and she's also a beat stick, which is nice. The downside of her is she's very Soul Blast costly, so you have to be careful. That's why we only run one of her. You gotta be careful when you want to use her, but she's also still really good. Like, she's a good card. You just gotta be cautious with the timing, stuff like that, as this can kind of break you in a way. Like, if you do this before your Kairi drive check, your opponent will know what your first drive check is, which can be a downside, as Kairi is already pretty unlethal in this variant of the deck, so you gotta be careful when you go into this. So first I run the Arnesta. This is our restander. She says whenever a ghost unit is placed on a rearguard circle, she just restands. So she just restands at any given point. As long as she's somewhere, if a ghost unit is placed at any given point, she just instantly restands. It doesn't matter where it happens, as long as it just happens, this occurs. So if you were to use the skill, like use attack with her and then put her to the bottom, do whatever, and then you use her skill to then call another ghost unit, whatever you boost it with, if you boost it, this restands again. And every single time you do this, this will continue to restand. So this is a good way to, 1, keep your columns big, but 2, keep your boosted units keep boosting. So like this card back here, this card requires you to boost. This card will literally reset itself as long as you call ghosties out, enabling you to be able to boost again. So this is just a really good way to keep your numbers high. Very important card. I would recommend, if you really want to, you can push it to 4. I'm fine with 3, but I can also understand 4. I think she's overall just a good card. Sia. So there's 3 copies of Sia. All right, guys, see you later. Video's over. Just kidding. But anyway, this is Sia. This card plays exactly the same as Floor does, essentially. There's a little bit of a difference to her. She says when she's placed on Rearguard Circle, you Soul Blast like a top card, call it to an open Rearguard Circle, or you can put it into your hand. If you put it in your hand, you have to discard something. So essentially, she lets you cycle through your deck a little bit faster, and also she lets you call something on board, meaning you can extend your combos with her. Now keep in mind, she is a Soul Blast, and in this deck is not as painful, but in other decks this can get very costly very fast. So you have to be very careful when using Sia. If you don't have enough soul, this gets very detrimental, as Kairi Soul Blast pretty much every single turn, this Soul Blast and this Soul Blast. You have to be cautious with how you're using your soul. This deck actually is pretty nice with soul, but you still have to be careful with how you're utilizing it. You don't want to overextend or do too much and then realize that you're screwed next turn. Just be careful with how you use her. But yeah, she pretty much works like this card works. They're very similar. I just like I like these cards for different situations. This does its own thing and this does its own thing, and I think they both do a good job of what they do. I also just like having Interceptor on the board, so sometimes I like just having this. But this card also pretty much does the same thing, but on top of that, you can also put cards into your hand. So it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice to see her. I run her at 3. Some people run her at 4. I just keep her at 3. The reason being is because I run some weird techie stuff like this. So this card is pretty much one of these and one of these if you really want to be super specific about your list. But I run Helminia. Helminia says when placed, if you have another ghost unit, you give something 5k. I personally think this is super important. We're talking about the restander here, so I was talking about how some stuff give 5ks. These give 5ks to other things. So if these are on the board, they can essentially give her 5k. So when she restands, she's going to restand as an 18k booster now. And this is really good if your opponent hits defense and stuff like that, as every single time she restands, that 10k will stay as long as you don't bounce her back. And I just think it's really important. So I actually run 2 copies of this. Also, in case I just happen to want to rush my opponent, I happen to have my pieces out. Like if I have this early on, or if I have this out, if this gets active instantly. So I can choose one where we're going to get 5k and kind of just push my opponent a little bit if I want to. Even your triggers are, some triggers are ghost unit triggers, so you can actually even proc it with, if say you look at top card, you get a crit, and then you place this down, that crit's a ghost crit, then you can also still, this will still proc. This is kind of like my tech. I recommend if you really want to be like super consistent, you could do something like this as well, as both these cards are very important, so you may want to utilize that, or you can even do something like this if you want, or you can even do something like this just to kind of help you with the consistency of seeing your ghost in time. I like this. This also enables really well with the restanding stuff. I can call her out and then this will restand and she'll give 5k to her, and I think these combo off each other pretty well. Just less defensive, obviously, since they're grade 1s and they're not grade 2s, so just something to be careful of. And then I also run perfect guards, so I'm gonna put the perfect guards down here. We have 4 perfect guards. I have all of them. This is my favorite perfect guard out of all of them, in my opinion. I think this perfect guard's great, but the second favorite is actually the bunny. I really like the bunny as well, and I eventually want this all to be either bunny or the elf girl, but I haven't decided yet which route I want to go. But for now, I just have a little bit of everything, including the dragon PG. But that's our perfect guards. Obviously, you need perfect guards because they help you, they save lives. Next, before I go into triggers, we obviously have the ruby that we search out through our ride line. This is the ruby right here. This is called True Hearted Ruby. As I stated before, it says play this with a cost of 1 counterblast, draw 2 cards, choose a card from hand and discard it, put this card into soul. So essentially you put it into soul, you draw 2 and then you discard. So you're not actually gaining anything from it. What you are gaining is going deeper into your deck, and that's really important with this deck. As I mentioned before, without a persona ride, you literally have vanilla turns. You got 3 attacking deck. This kind of helps you become a 4th attacking deck, but still you want to see your personas for very obvious reasons. 1, persona is great, and 2, just, it just helps you push your engine as quickly as possible to kill your opponent as soon as possible. Let's talk about triggers. So obviously we have the over trigger. This is the Lyrical Monasterio over trigger. It says if it's, offensively checked, then all your rear guards get 10k for the rest of the game, not just the turn, it's literally the rest of the game. So if you check this turn 1, you have a really beefy rear guards. If your opponent's smart enough, they'll try and knock out your rear guards as soon as possible. But if they're a little bit less careful and they let your rear guards stay on the board, you're pretty much going to have a party, as everything, including triggers, are just going to hit for stupid numbers. That's pretty much the entire skill. And obviously defensively, just draw a card. Offensively, draw a card as well. And that's pretty much the entire over trigger there. And then we have our heals. Here we have the 4 heal triggers, and I run the LSP along with the trial deck SPs. And then this is where I'm just gonna warn you a little bit. I run the crits, but I run beyond just to flex. But I would highly recommend running 4 of the ghost crit. There she is. This is Nora. Run 4 of these if you want to be super optimal, as in case you check it as your top card and you pull it down, you can then proc some stuff because it's a ghost card. So I highly recommend running 4 of these. I'm just for flex reasons and not doing that, but that's just because for flex reasons. If I were entering a tournament, I would instantly switch these out for these. So highly recommend you run ghost triggers. If there are any ghost triggers count in the future and you want to keep to this deck, please put the ghost triggers in over the regular ones because they will do you. They overall are just more useful to you than the regular triggers. So just put them in and have a party with them. Right now it's only, I believe, crits and fronts that have them. I don't think draws have them, heals don't have them. So right now it's just crits and fronts, but just something to think about. And then I run 5 draws. I used to run like 6, 7, 8-ish draws, and I used to run the rest 3 crits and then heals and the over trigger, but I changed it up a little bit. I'm just starting to notice that I kind of need to kill my opponent whether I like it or not, and sometimes the multi-attack just comes a little too late, so I just like to have the crits to just kind of see them as soon as possible. The draw is nice and kind of very important. Usually, especially in a deck like this, your Kairi attack will be the least lethal attack there is. It'll be usually at 13k, not doing much. Your opponent usually will care. Your opponent will be more concerned about your rear guards attacking, so that's why I run the crits to kind of make it to make my Kairi a little bit more lethal, as your opponent will constantly they don't really care about this attack so much as they'll care about your rear guards attacking, because that's just kind of how the deck works. The deck works in a way where you're bouncing, so usually you don't have anything to put your triggers on, so you'll always put it on Kairi. So chances are your opponent will either no guard it or they'll no pass it. That'll be like the 2 ways they'll go. So your triggers will either become just nothing or they'll become something, depending if you put it on, if you bounce in a way where you put on something else. But that's kind of how that's how the deck works. Last but not least, if you want to be cool like me, you can also get yourself a 100 million token, and I made mine really super pretty. I'm probably gonna make a video on what I do to all my units, all my unimportant, all my non-decky things. I make all my decky things super pretty. A lot of people compliment me a lot on what I do and how I make my stuff look extra pretty. Another example is my Joker card has recently also joined the crew of prettiness. So yeah, get yourself a 100 million token. You get them lyrical boxes, you get them in the overdress boxes. Get yourself something pretty to add on to the fun of your deck building. So yeah, let me go ahead and switch. Like I said, if you want to also see the combos, I'll make a separate video for that. Check the Kairi combos out. This is specifically the deck and for me to kind of flex and for me to show you kind of where to start. Now, I do want to tell you guys, this isn't like the perfect, like this is the go-to, this is your like win deck. This deck is just an example, like an idea that you can use. I've spent a lot of time with you guys kind of analyzing some of these lists, and this is just what I've come up with. But there are many ways to build Kairi and many ways to build the Kairi Ghost deck. Some people don't run Flora at all. Some people do. Some people run other cards. You know, it's okay to run something different. I'm not telling you guys that this is the way to just win the game with this deck right here, but I want to give you guys examples of what you can use to then take and then make your decks better, you know. Guys, I'm gonna see you guys in another video. Can't get enough of you guys. I have so much fun just doing this with you guys that I just get so excited, and thank you. I love making content. I'm happy to be here for you guys. Other than that, I'm gonna go head out and start other videos. So I'll see you guys there. So peace out. Das vidania. See you guys next time. Bye!